Hey, what's up, gardening friends? Jeff here, Tropical Plant Party. How's everybody doing? If you're good, I'm great. Today, I'm gonna do some orchid talk, mainly about my Oncidium Sherry baby. Now, I by no means would consider this to be a glowing specimen of an orchid, but I've had a fair number of people ask about how I grow my sherry babies, how I get them to flower, keep their flowers, and several people asked me to talk about what I do with my Oncidiums in general, because a lot of my Oncidiums are pretty big. They're probably the most vigorous of all of my orchids, but I think that's partially because Oncidiums are pretty vigorous if you give them what they need. They can also be a pain in the butt, but I'll talk about all that in a minute. As I've mentioned in many videos in the past, I have a lot of sherry babies. Sherry babies make me very happy. They smell fantastic, as we all know. The chocolatey, fruity smell, so pleasant. I mean, nothing compares to that flower smell.
'Cause nothing compares, nothing compares to you.
Floral scent. That makes more sense. Floral scent. That sounds like fluorescent. Now, this particular sherry baby I've had for several years. I've divided it multiple times. It's the most vigorous out of any of my others. I don't know why, because I'm fairly certain that all the ones I have are clones. That's generally how it works with these guys. But it's something about this particular one just grows like a weed. And you can see some damage here. I keep these outside the majority of the year. I mean, when I can. So basically late spring through mid-fall, depending on how cold it is. And it's not unusual for sherry babies for their old leaves to become tattered and look pretty shabby when you move them into the sun. That happens. And then black spotting happens. And there have been studies done with viral tests and things like that to look at the spotting that some sherry babies get. Some people are claiming the more black spots they have, the better the fragrance. I can't back any of that up, and I don't understand why it would be true, so that's just like stuff you read in the comments. I'm going to talk about just what I've done and my experience with it, not what all the little review boards and commenty things online say. I'm not trying to bash those. I'm not saying there's no truth in those. I'm just saying that the information on this orchid is all over the place. And that's perhaps because it's one of the most commonly grown Oncidiums. So there's a lot more people talking about this particular variety and a lot more people with different opinions on how it's growing for them. Now, Miss Orchid Girl, who I'm sure everybody knows, she really has the best information on this guy. And her website, Orchid Nature, says it all. I mean, describes the size of the pseudobulbs and what happens as they age, how to take care of them. So I'm just going to talk about what I do, because this has been done. There are several varieties of sherry babies, or SHARRY. I cannot pronounce the name properly. It's just my tongue won't do it. But there are several varieties, and this one, I believe, is Sweet Romance or Sweet Fantasy. I'm not positive. Its tag is buried somewhere within the roots. I need to repot this guy. It has a lot of healthy new roots popping out. The new roots are white with green tips. Old roots will turn green when they've been watered or hydrated, and dead roots are brown. This is how I know it's time to repot this guy. And because it's staying wet for way too long. The past few times I've watered it, stayed wet for like 4 days, and that's too long. So the media in here is broken down enough that there's not air moving through it, which means it's definitely time for a repot. That'll be something separate. These things take forever to repot because their roots are so fine. And I don't enjoy doing it, but I enjoy the end result. And I have a few other varieties. The only one I have in bloom right now is a variety called Short Stuff. I guess I should probably go get that. And I'll get the lights turned on. That might help too. I'll be right back. Just 1 second. All right, got that done. Oh, whoops. Much better. So, this is my Oncidium Short Cherry. This started spiking for me probably around May or June, and the blooms opened up late July, early August. It originally had 3 spikes. This is the last remaining spike. And it's starting to go. This spike probably opened, I don't know guys, memories are hard. I want to say September to October. Point being here is I've been asked what their flowering season is, and honestly, mine bloom for me throughout the year. So it's kind of hard to say they're fall bloomers or spring bloomers. I've noticed they seem to bloom fall and spring. They can bloom multiple times a year. Now I can compare the two of these. This one right here, if you remember my videos from the summertime, my cats had their way with this plant. And as a result, it became unpotted. So keeping it hydrated has been a bigger challenge. But it takes 3 to 4 months for their spikes to fully develop sometimes. So I didn't want to repot it while it was spiking. When they start to spike, I tend to treat them very delicately because that's a long period of time to keep everything okay and keep them from losing their buds. But you can see here, this is a pseudobulb that needs much more water versus plump, healthier pseudobulbs. As far as the foliage colors go, this one's getting better sun than this one right now. I need to bring this one closer to my grow lights, I think. So, the main question has been, what's up with the flowering? And that is the most complicated part. Oftentimes, if your SHARRY baby isn't flowering for you, light usually has something to do with that. These can take a lot more sun than people think. If they're getting too much sun, though, they will yellow, the leaves will bleach out, the older leaves, like I said before, become tattered, and you'll see discoloration. So they don't need to be necessarily in direct blazing sun, but mine get just kind of a notch below what my Vandas get. My Vandas get a lot of light. So I do think lighting plays a pivotal role here. I also let my Oncidiums experience a temperature shift. So I like to let my Oncidiums experience some colds. Not freezing cold temperatures, but I just mean as the seasons ebb and flow, I let them get the night and day shift. They're going to do best above 75 degrees, don't get me wrong. But I'll let them have their nighttime temperatures into the 50s in a cool window. And that does seem to play a role when I move them into those windows. Usually within a month or two is when I start to see spikes. But it's also the same time of year every time that happens. It's either late fall or early spring because I rotate them in and out of my grow space from in my garage here, my grow space, into the house. So that probably has something to do with it too. But the ones out here spike at the same time. So the trick really is, how do you keep your spikes? Well, once you get them to spike, 3 to 4 months, you have to stay on top of these plants. Meaning, are they being nourished properly? And are they getting everything they need? Are they getting light? Are they getting nutrients? Is there proper airflow? And humidity. Humidity is huge. To prevent bloom loss or bud blast, you don't want extreme changes in your temperature. Whatever temperatures and things you have going on when they start to spike, try and hold things in that area until the bloom stalks and the spikes are fully developed. Humidity plays a very large role in that. These guys like very high humidity. If you can keep the air around them nice and wet while their spikes are developing, they're going to hold on to those spikes a little bit better. Now, as far as supplementation goes, nutrition, I use CalMag and Silica Blast. Those are my main 2 chemicals, or supplements I should say, that I use for these guys. And that's about it. I don't use much in the way of fertilizers in the winter time, unless it's an organic fertilizer. But they're watered with aquaponics water, which is, it has nitrate, which is your nitrogen source, and it has phosphate in it. So it's not that they're not getting fertilized, it's just that it's from a different source. And it's more consistent. Every time they get watered, they're getting a little bit of this water, which isn't great with the coconut bark because it breaks it down, especially not great with sphagnum moss. I have to stay on top of it. There are pros and cons to it. It's a lot of work, but my tap water is so hard, this is the best way I can keep things watered properly. And the breaker blue again is what it is. Pardon the terrible lighting. As I was saying, for these guys, more light than you would think. Indirect morning and early afternoon sun seems to do them well. They are heavy feeders, and I keep them near my Vandas, so they get watered often. I keep them near my Vandas for a couple reasons. One, The relative humidity around them is going to be a little bit better because the Vandas are getting sprayed and misted all the time. So there's wet air around them. Second reason, they're heavier feeders, just like the Vandas are, but probably not to the same extent as a Vanda. But they get more water that way by keeping them near the Vandas. And I try and do this with most of my Oncidiums, but I have a lot of Oncidiums, and I grow them all a little bit differently. For example, this guy over here, I grow bare root. See? And I just set it on top of that soil during the winter. I've done this every year, and it grows like a weed. I think it likes the moisture from the dirt. It's on top of it. There's a layer of bark underneath it, so it's not directly in contact with the soil. But it's very unconventional, and I'm sure that it probably upsets a lot of people. But it's working wonderfully. This guy is very large and looking good. And then during the summertime, I have a spot in my palm trees that I work this into the crown. And it does great there. But I wouldn't do that with my SHARRY babies. And here's why. I'm pretty sure they would dry out way too fast. If keeping humidity up indoors is an issue for you, in my home, it's not too bad. In the actual house, out here in the garage, I struggle with it. But inside, in the bathrooms where you have a shower, they'll do a little bit better as long as it's nice and bright in there. I keep mine near my kitchen sink where there's a lot of dishes being done, and even my dishwasher that's near that puts out steam when it's running. And if humidity becomes a real struggle, then sometimes I'll set up one of those cute little cheap fountains near it, and having that moving water right next to the pot does help. Some people do humidity trays with the, you can put like a rock or whatever you want in the bottom, put water in there. I haven't noticed those to be incredibly effective unless, you know, the plant's like really squatting low, really close to it. Maybe an Oncidium twinkle in a tiny little pot might be useful, or slipper orchids, perhaps, papilopedilums. I haven't noticed that helping much with my larger orchids because they're just up a little bit too high. Doesn't do a great deal unless you have a massive humidity tray that's surrounding. It would need to extend out past the foliage of the plant because you want the vapor to come up and even be in contact with the leaves. These are epiphytes, so they're getting their nutrition from that wet air. The wetter your air, the better they're going to do. Oh, it smells so good. Nothing compares to the SHARRY baby. You can see the flowers are starting to fall off of this guy. Oh, there goes one right there. I actually have been saving the flowers. I don't think that there's a reason for that, but I was like, maybe it'll work as a potpourri, or I might be able to work them into an oil. I don't think so. For the most part, they generally smell in the morning and during the daytime. And a lot of people say they don't smell at night. I can smell this one at nighttime, but not my others. So I don't know what that's about. I can smell this one almost all day. I mean, I haven't sniffed it at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or anything like that. So that's probably when it's not smelling too great. I don't think that that's even in focus. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just smelled this. It just smells like metal. But for some reason I want to keep them. I guess I'm a hoarder. And actually, this one bud blasted on me last year. There's a video I did explaining what happened, but basically someone left a garage door open here at nighttime. The humidity outside was it was like 20%, 25%, maybe, something horribly dry, and my circulation fans were blowing. And it was 30 degrees outside. And that desiccated and destroyed a lot of my orchids. But that won't happen this year because I have installed an alarm that will let me know on my phone and email if temperatures go too low or too high, so live and learn. I also feel that I should clarify, I'm not suggesting that you water your Oncidiums with the same vigor that you would a Vanda. That works for me because where they are outside, the air is moving around them a lot and the humidity's low. When the humidity's high, I'm much more cautious with that because if they stay wet too long, they'll rot. And you see these brown roots in here? These are some really old roots. This guy needs to be repotted badly. And see, it's even started to wrap its roots around itself. So that's something I'll get to the next few weeks. When I repot it, I'm probably going to use a mix from SVO, Sunset Valley Orchids. Or maybe I'll go the rock route, but this has been doing so well as it is. I don't really feel like changing anything right now. I don't have a fertilizer brand that I would recommend in particular. I've used Lots and lots of different ones, and they all seem to work fine. Since they're heavy feeders, though, if you want to fertilize them, I'd say every other week at the minimum, and then flush them once a month so that the salts don't build up and damage the roots and the plant in general. You want to keep everything nice and clean, and consistency is key. It's kind of what I was getting at when I was talking about the humidity. If it starts off in a very moist environment, you want to keep things nice and moist to keep that bloom stock going and happy. And it seems, a lot of people have different experiences with their Oncidiums, particularly their SHARRY babies, specifically the SHARRY baby. So let me know how they're doing for you and what you guys do for yours. I know my situation with the aquaponics tub really isn't very relatable at all. So I've kind of done my best to just explain the more general environment that they're in. And it may be of some help, and it's really probably mostly just going to be 15 minutes or so of me just rambling. I don't know. It's Vlogmas. Here's another vlog. And I have been asked about the silicone supplements. If that video hasn't come out by the time this video has come out, then I'm sorry. I did do a video on it well over a year ago. I think it was Vlogmas last year. I rewatched it. It was pretty boring, so maybe I'll just do a quick, redo on that one and generalize the information a little bit and link to the old one. But I like the Silica Blast, particularly because it helps stiffen the cell walls, helps strengthen your plant. Same thing with calcium and magnesium. I can look at this guy and see it needs some calcium and magnesium supplementation right now, which is no big deal. It's easy to do. But alright, that's enough rambling for today. I hope everybody's doing well. Don't forget to comment down below. Let me know what's going on with your orchids and your Oncidiums, like I said before. How are yours doing for you, especially your SHARRY babies? Leave that thumbs up. It's a huge help. Subscribe. I try and upload multiple times a week. Right now in December, I'm attempting to upload every single day. We'll see how long that lasts. And you can follow me on Snapchat, Trop Plant Party, Instagram, Tropical Plant Party, and Twitter, Tropical Plant JC. I use Twitter more than anything else. But I hope everybody's doing well, and as always, keep on growing. Bye-bye.